All right, strap in, everyone. Today we're going to take a deep dive into something pretty amazing. Multimodal AI.
Multimodal AI, where machines are starting to see the world more like we do.
Exactly. And we're diving into this incredible paper, Janus, Decoupling Visual Encoding for Unified Multimodal Understanding and Generation.
Oh, this is a good one.
It really is. Getting AI to truly understand and generate, content, it's been a huge EE challenge.
Yeah, it has. And this paper, it tackles this conflict head on.
Conflict
Well, think about it. Traditionally, AI models have used just one visual encoder.
for everything.
Yeah, for both understanding and generation. But that creates a compromise, Like, imagine an artist using the same brush for tiny details and these massive broad strokes. It's not ideal.
Ah, I see. So, using one tool for two very different jobs.
That's it. Like, think about a chef's knife. You wouldn't use it to, I don't know, to finely chop herbs A&D, try to, hack through a bone.
Right, right. So you're saying the same thing happens with AI.
Exactly. On the one hand, you have these understanding encoders. They're all about grasping the high-level meaning, like what's in the image, how are things related, the whole scene.
So it's like the AI is seeing and interpreting, but on a more conceptual level.
Yes, getting the gist of it. Then on the other side, you have generation encoders, and they need those finer details, textures, precise arrangements, all the little things that make an image look realistic.
Oh, okay. I see the difference now. It's like understanding the idea of a sunset versus actually painting one with all the subtle colors and the way the light hits the clouds.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But if you try to make one encoder do both, something's got to give.
Unfortunately, yes. It leads to this performance trade-off. Like, the AI might do okay at one task, but it suffers on the other. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Makes sense. So this is the problem the researchers were facing.
Yes, and they came up with a brilliant solution. This is where Janus comes in, named after the Roman god with, you guessed it, two faces.
Two faces. Okay, I'm already intrigued.
And just like Janus, this model has two separate visual encoding pathways, one for understanding and one dedicated to generation.
No more compromise. Each encoder gets to specialize.
Exactly. It's this idea of decoupling, the separation of powers, if you will. It lets each pathway use the absolute best techniques without having to compromise.
This seems like a massive change in how we think about AI. But does it actually translate to better performance?
Oh, absolutely. The results are pretty stunning. This model, it actually beats previous unified models on both understanding A and D generation benchmarks. We're not talking about small improvements either. These are significant gains.
So specializing really does make a difference.
A huge difference. They tested Janus on some well-established benchmarks to measure both understanding and generation abilities.
Give us some examples. What kind of tests are we talking about?
For understanding, there's Bench and Bench, which assess how well a model answers questions about images, figures out those complex visual relationships.
Like showing the model a picture and asking what's going on here, how are these objects connected, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And for generation, there's MSUO and Genevol. These test how well a model can generate realistic images from text descriptions, including complex instructions, like multiple objects, specific colors, and where everything needs to be.
So it's not just making a pretty picture. It has to show that it understands the instructions and can actually translate those into a visual.
Exactly. And the results are in. Janus aced it. It achieves state-of-the-art results, proving this decoupling is a real game changer.
It's amazing to see how this all plays out in the real world, but let's zoom out for a second. What does this breakthrough actually mean for us?
Think about it. AI that can not only understand complex images like medical scans or those intricate scientific diagrams, but also generate photorealistic images from your descriptions.
Like I could say, design a logo with a lion and a sunset, and the AI could actually create it.
Exactly. That's the kind of future this decoupling brings us closer to. A world where AI can understand A&D, generate content seamlessly.
This is mind-blowing.
Okay.
Before we get too lost in the future, let's get back to the present. How does this Janus model actually work? Tell us about the magic behind it all.
All right, let's pop the hood and take a closer look.
All right, so we're ready to get technical, right? Tell me, how does Janus work? What's going on under the hood?
Okay, picture this. Janus has three main parts. We've got independent encoders for text, understanding, and generation. Then those feed into this unified transformer.
Okay, so each part has its own speciality, and then they all come together.
Yeah, like a team of experts working together, right? Each one focuses on their area and then they collaborate.
I like it. So let's start at the beginning. How does the text encoder work?
So Janus uses the tokenizer built into whatever large language model they decided to use. This basically translates the words into something the AI can understand, kind of like turning our language into code.
Makes sense. So the AI can actually read the words, so to speak.
Right.
Now, what about those visual encoders, the understanding and generation ones? That's where the real Janus magic happens, right?
Exactly. The understanding encoder uses this thing called SIGLIP. It's a special kind of neural network, really good at pulling out meaningful features from images, like teaching the AI to actually see objects, actions, relationships.
So it's not just pixels anymore. It's like the AI is actually understanding what's in the image.
Yes, the understanding encoder creates this sequence of features, like a little summary of what the image represents conceptually.
Fascinating. And what about the generation encoder? It must be doing something totally different, right?
Right. The generation encoder uses a VQ tokenizer. This one breaks down the image into codes, kind of like a digital paint by numbers, you know? It captures all the details, the textures, how things are arranged, all the stuff you need to actually recreate an image.
So it's like creating a blueprint for the image, making sure every detail is captured.
Exactly. And just like the understanding encoder, the generation encoder outputs a sequence of features. But this time, those features represent all those tiny details and that spatial structure.
Okay, so we've got our three encoders, each doing their own thing. But how do they actually work together? What is this unified transformer?
The transformer is the brain, the one bringing it all together. It's like the conductor of an orchestra, right?
Right.
So all three feature sequences, text, understanding, and generation, they all go into this one transformer.
So that's where the different parts share their insights and work together.
Exactly. The transformer learns this multimodal language, so it can go back and forth between text and images. This is how Janus can do all those amazing things, like answer questions about a picture and create a picture from a description.
This is incredible. But learning a new language, it takes time, right? How does Janus learn to do all this?
Janus goes through this intense training process, 3 whole stages, like boot camp for AI. Each stage builds on the last one, making it more and more skilled.
Okay, I'm ready for boot camp. What happens in each stage?
First stage is all about making those connections between what it sees and the words. The encoders in the language model are frozen. Think of it like they're set in place, and only the adapters and the image head are trained.
Adapters and image head. What are those exactly?
So adapters are like these bridges between each encoder and the transformer. They help translate all the information into one common language so the transformer can understand it all, like having a translator in a meeting, you know? And the image head, that's the one actually making the images. During the generation tasks, of course.
Ah, so it's the artist of the group, taking those instructions, that blueprint, and turning it into an actual image.
You got it. Stage 1 is all about laying the groundwork for communication.
Communication is key. What happens in stage 2?
Stage 2 is where the magic really happens. This is called unified pre-training. It's where Janus learns to do both understanding and generation together. It's like practicing all those skills and learning to work together as a team.
Sounds intense. What kind of data are they using for all this training?
All sorts. Pure text data, image text pairs with captions, even tables and charts. It's like exposing Janus to every kind of information you can think of.
So it becomes a true multitasker, right?
Exactly. And during this stage, the entire model is unfrozen, so it can fine-tune everything, both understanding and generation.
Wow. Unified training sounds pretty crucial to making Janus so good at what it does. What happens in the final stage?
All right, stage 3. This is all about fine-tuning its conversational skills, its ability to follow instructions, like polishing those communication skills, making it more responsive and adaptable.
So it's like taking a team that already works well together and making them super efficient.
Yes, so Janus gets trained on dialogue data, instructions for understanding things, and instructions for generating things, so it can handle all sorts of requests.
That's amazing. This whole training process is super fascinating. But I'm still curious about one thing. How does Janus create those incredible images? What's the secret ingredient?
That's a great question. This is where a technique called classifier-free guidance comes in. It's like giving the AI a gentle nudge in the right direction when it's creating images.
A nudge. Okay, tell me more about this guidance thing.
So during training, sometimes they replace the text input with this special pad token. This basically forces the model to learn how to generate images without any text at all, just based on its training data.
So, like, it's developing its own visual understanding, its own instincts.
Exactly. And when it's time to generate an image, they combine this unconditional generation ability with the actual text input. It's like blending the model's own visual imagination with the instructions it's given.
So it's like having an AI partner that can follow instructions but also brings its own creative ideas to the table.
That's a great way to put it. And that's how Janus achieves such impressive results. It's got those specialized encoders, the unified training, and this clever guidance technique.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into how Janus works and how it's trained. We've learned about the specialized encoders, the unified training, and even how it uses this classifier-free guidance thing to make amazing images. But how does it actually perform? How does it compare to other models out there?
That's what we'll look at in the last part of our deep dive. We'll dig into the benchmark, see how Janus stacks up against the competition, and talk about what it all means for the future of multimodal AI.
Okay, so we've seen how Janus works, we've seen how it learns, but how does it actually perform? Does it live up to all the hype?
Oh, it definitely does. They put Janus through a whole bunch of tests, those benchmark tests that everyone uses, to see how it stacks up against other AI models, both for understanding and generation.
Okay, so let's start with understanding. What kind of tests did they use?
Well, they use things like M-bench and seed-bench. These are tests that look at how well the AI can answer questions about images, recognize objects and how they relate to each other, and even understand memes, those funny images with the text on them.
Wait, memes? So you're telling me this AI can get sarcasm? That's impressive.
It is, and remember, it's competing against other AI models that are sometimes much bigger or specifically designed just for understanding.
So what happened? Did Janus pass the test?
Janus did amazing. It consistently got state-of-the-art results, sometimes even beating those bigger models that are only supposed to do understanding. It really shows how powerful those specialized encoders are.
Wow, that's incredible. But what about generation? How do they test that?
For generation, they used benchmarks like MS-GOCO and Genival. MS-GOCO looks at how realistic and high quality the images are. And Genival, that one goes deeper. It sees how well the AI follows those complex instructions with multiple objects, colors, and placements.
So it's not just creating a random pretty picture. It has to understand exactly what you're asking for and translate that into an image.
Exactly. And once again, Janus performed amazingly. It got high scores on MS-GOCO, which means it makes high-quality images, and it was super accurate on Genival, showing that it can handle those detailed instructions perfectly.
So basically, Janus rocked both understanding and generation.
It did. It really shows the power of this whole decoupling approach.
Okay, but they didn't just take Janus's word for it, right? How did they really make sure this design was the best?
Right. So, to be extra sure, they did something called an ablation study. They compared Janus to a few different variations, like some with only one encoder and some trained separately for understanding and generation.
So like testing different setups to see which one worked the best.
Exactly. And guess what? The ablation study proved that decoupling was the secret sauce. Those models with just one encoder, they had that trade-off, doing well on one task but not the other. And even training Janus separately, it didn't work as well as training it together for both tasks at the same time.
So it's not just about having those specialized encoders. It's about how you train the AI to handle both tasks together. Like it's learning the connection between understanding and generating.
That's exactly it. This unified training gives Janus a more complete picture of how language and images work together.
This has been an incredible journey. We've gone from the basics of multimodal AI to the inner workings of Janus, and now to these amazing results. It's clear that this research is really pushing the boundaries of what AI can do.
It is. Imagine AI that can understand images and text, create realistic images from our descriptions, and maybe even incorporate audio and 3D data in the future. The possibilities are mind-blowing.
It's like we're on the verge of something huge. And it's all thanks to incredible research like this Janus model.
Absolutely. This is a really exciting time to be working in this field.
Thanks for taking us on this deep dive. And to all our listeners, if you want to explore this amazing research further, definitely check out the full paper. It's an incredible read.
Yes, definitely. And as always, keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and never stop learning.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone.